Good morning, kindergarten. Good morning, first grade. Today is Tuesday and it's Art Tuesday, which means we are going to have a little art project today. We're going to be making a flower pot with your name. It's going to look like this. I've already made mine. I've given you all the pieces that you'll need to make the flower pot name art. You have the flower pot, you have the stem, you have the middle that says my name is, and you have all the petals for spelling your name. So I did Mrs. Trana, Mrs. Trana. I went in a circle. And then down below, the name art has some things to fill in. So the name here at the top is called Chrysanthemum because I'm going to be reading you a book called Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is a long flower name, has 13 letters in it, and it's the name of the book I'll be reading to you today called Chrysanthemum. It's one of my favorite all-time books, and since we're going to start our plants unit this week, I decided that it was a great time to read it to you and to do this art project. Down below it says, my name is, so you're going to write your name on the line. I wrote Mrs. Trana. My name has 8 letters, so you're going to fill in the number of letters that you have in your name. It's going to be different for everybody. My name is unique. That means it's very special. Not everybody has your name. So here's an example of the name art you'll be making for art today. And I will read the book to you. If you wanted to color your pot, your stem, your flower petals and things, if you wanted to color that while I'm reading, you could do that. But I just wanted to give you a little heads up. If I were you, I would use permanent marker to write my name first. And I would also use permanent marker to write my name and to answer how many letters are in my name. And I'll tell you why. If you start by writing your name in permanent marker and your answers in permanent marker, then you can color over them with color crayon just fine. But I will tell you, if you start with crayon first and then try to write over them with like washable marker or even permanent marker, it doesn't go on the wax crayon very good. So my pointer to you, or my hint to you, is do your writing first in permanent marker and then go over it with crayon, okay? Be sure to use dark. I used black, and then I colored over it lightly so you could still see my letters really well. I know it's hard to tell, but even my pot's colored really lightly. It's actually a super light brown. You can't hardly see it in the video, but I did color that light brown also. I'll let you decide how you want to color that. So here's the example. I'm not sure there's a place I can hide it very easily or hang it very easily. Let me see. Maybe like right there. How does that work? Can you see it? A little bit. It's kind of there. Maybe I should put it on the other side of me. Let's try that. I'll put it right next. Ooh, excuse me. I'll put it right next to the exclamation point. Can you see that pretty good? There you go. Now you can see it while I'm reading, okay? All right. The book is Chrysanthemum by Kevin Henkes. Chrysanthemum. I'm bringing nice and close. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew, and when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her in for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile, and she ran all the way. Hooray, said Chrysanthemum. School, she excited. But when Mrs. Chud took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. But look, it doesn't even fit in the square, does it? It's so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on your name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chud that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chud. Now put your head down. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, said Victoria. And as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School's no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long, and it scarcely fits on my name tag. And I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish, said her mother. Your name is beautiful. And precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper, and she walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria, as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. She didn't think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day wasn't much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chud. Now put your head down. I just can't believe your name, said Victoria to the students when they were lining up to go home. Neither can I, thought Chrysanthemum. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even look like a flower, and they pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, pish, said her mother. They're just jealous. And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced, said her father. Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked her leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most precious prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school, and she stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 the flowers all seemed to say. The next morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder, and they went out of their way to make a very nice impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales, and then she assigned roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess, and Jo was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy, Jo, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum, was the answer. Her name is so long, said Jo. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. My name is Long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is? Said Jo. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would? Said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are? Said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, she bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Jo, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Jo. I'm Carnation, said Rita, pointing. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. Boys and girls, your name is absolutely perfect too. Have fun making your flower pot name art. Hang it up somewhere wonderful and be proud of your unique name. I love you. We'll see you later.